And good afternoon, everyone. Just going to give it another minute or two before we get started. Want to let people finish getting enrolled into the room. So please be patient with us. We will begin here shortly. Again, just want to thank everyone for joining us today. Want to give it one more minute for people to continue entering into the room, and then we will get started.
Gary, do you have it set up so that I cannot mute myself?
I do not,
Okay. Oh,
but I will make sure that you are unmuted when needed.
okay. Well, no, because I'm trying to mute myself.
Oh, nope, I don't. You were muted. You're muted right now.
Oh,
All
okay. It's
right.
it's working. Thank you.
And good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm just going to cover a few housekeeping items before we get started. The session is being recorded, and we will email everyone the recording after the event. We have captions available, so feel free to use them as needed. And lastly, I'd like to mention if anyone needs any accessibility support, training, usability testing, an email will get sent out with a link to schedule a time to speak with one of our experts after the webinar. And with that, I am going to get things started here. Give me just a moment to share my screen.
Marking a milestone, celebrating 30 years of JAWS on Global Accessibility Awareness Day. Join Matt Ader and Jennison Asuncion as they spotlight the technologies, breakthroughs, and people that have shaped digital accessibility over the years.
Before 1995, screen readers struggled to keep up with the rapidly evolving world of graphical computing. JAWS had already made an impact in the DOS era, but as Windows became the dominant operating system, a new challenge emerged. How could blind and visually impaired users navigate an interface designed for sight? In January 1995, the very first version of JAWS for Windows was released, marking the beginning of a new era in digital accessibility. This is the story of 30 years of innovation, a journey from the first version of JAWS for Windows to the cutting-edge screen reader we know today. And it all started in 1995.
Well, welcome everybody. My name is Matt Ader, and very excited for a fun evening tonight with my friend Jennison to kind of talk about what's going on with the 30th anniversary of JAWS for Windows and celebrating it on Global Accessibility Awareness Day. Now, some will say this is officially not Global Accessibility Awareness Day. I guess it really depends where in the world you are, because there are people around the world watching this that are in different time zones, and this is kind of kicking it off for us and for GAD, or Global Accessibility Awareness Day. I'm Senior Vice President at Vispero, the makers of JAWS for Windows, and I want to go ahead and let Jennison introduce himself.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Matt, and happy Global Accessibility Awareness Day, everyone. The reality is, although the official day is the third Thursday of every month, there are some folks who have already gotten started even as early as the beginning of the month. So thank you all for your interest. I co-founded Global Accessibility Awareness Day with my partner, Joe Devon. And we started that back in 2012. So this is our 14th Global Accessibility Awareness Day. I'm also co-founder of the GAD Foundation. You can learn all about the work of the foundation at GAAD.foundation. And for Global Accessibility Awareness Day, you can learn more about that. I know I'll be talking about a little bit, but you can go to accessibility.day.
So Jennison, I mean, we're sitting here on this day, and this didn't, as you said, this has been going on for the month, but like you've been doing this for a while, traveling around this month on this topic. Tell us a little bit about where were you today doing this?
Oh, well, today, fortunately, I've been lucky. I've been here. I came in as a surprise to Manhattan on Monday. There was a tech and disabilities event that was happening there. Not necessarily affiliated with Global Accessibility Awareness Day, but I was there and I had a chance to talk about it. But tonight really kicks things off for me with the time differences. I've got events in China and India tonight, which is daytime over there.
Yeah, you say that I'm in London and just finished a day where we're talking about accessibility and global accessibility on global accessibility awareness day, trying to kick off things
Nice.
and traveling the rest of the week and next. So looking forward to continuing the dialogue on accessibility and what we're doing here. And clearly we're here to talk about um, JAWS and a little bit about it. So um, let's start with the history of Jaws and the name. You know, for those who don't know, we always think of it as Jaws like the shark. And if you were at CSUN this year, you would have seen people walking around in a shark costume and enjoying themselves, sharing off, doing pictures and videos and stuff like that with the shark. Um, but it stands for Job Access with Speech. And when Ted Henner developed JAWS, even in the DOS days, it was about work and the workplace opportunities for people who are blind and low vision, being blind himself. Ted felt that it was important to have technology out there to do that. So commend to Ted for the inventions of JAWS, even in the DOS days and onto the Windows days, and very proud of the company for what they've been able to do over the last 30 years. So some of the other kind of notable assistive technologies that have happened, Jennison, we experiment with this stuff all day long, and
Oh
we're gonna
yeah.
talk about just the JAWS stuff in a minute. But I mean, if you think about the technologies that we use every day, from braille displays to scan and read devices, and today we're now using our cell phones, which is a huge assistive technology
And
device,
glasses.
and the Ray-Ban glasses or the low vision glasses
Mhm.
and AI tools, either from Microsoft and from Be My Eyes and from Ira and other people like that. It's amazing how much things have changed in 30 years. And I know we'll talk mostly about Jaws today, but those things have made a difference in your lives, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, without aging myself, I go way back, so I appreciate where things are today. I mean, the fact that I can take pictures on my phone and get assistance without needing someone. So for folks to know, I'm completely blind. So that I can find out what my asset tag number is on my laptop without having someone to ask by just taking a picture or sitting in a restaurant, scanning a menu, those kinds of things. Those are game changers, right?
Well, and there at one point, if we didn't have it at home, we didn't have it,
Yeah,
right? And
absolutely.
and it's not like you were traveling around with it because of the technology
It was clunky.
differences. Yeah, yeah,
And it was
exactly.
big and you had multiple different things depending on what you needed it for. Now with the technology the way it is, a lot of it you can do many things with one piece of software.
Yeah, you think of optical character recognition, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the JAWS feature, but there was a point in time where it was the size of a copy machine in a
Oh,
library.
yeah.
And so to think how much that has changed over the time that you can just use a camera and your phone today to do the same thing is amazing.
I wish I was back in school now because back then I was flipping cassette tapes when I was in college. Now everything is so easy to read on your computer, with Daisy and all of those things.
Yeah. So obviously the first notable date, which was mentioned in the video, and we have to spend a lot of time on it, was 1995. And I was today while in London, I was wearing my sport coat, and on the sport coat was a 30th anniversary pin, and it's the Jaws, and it's in the shape of a floppy disk. And just to think that there was a time when we delivered software on, say, 17 floppies,
Oh, I remember those days.
and it would tell you to insert one floppy, and then it get to the end, and then it would say, okay, insert the next one. And if you screwed up, what did you have to do? Start all over,
Yeah.
you know? And so obviously eventually it switched to CDs and now just downloadable. And what a difference that has made. I mean, this isn't box software anymore, right?
No, and that's the neat thing about it. The convenience of being able to download JAWS from any laptop anywhere as long as you have internet access. I mean, that's a huge game changer.
In 1996, they added something called scripting support. Now, I was in early classes learning this technology, and at the time, I think we actually called it macros. But the intent being is that there's a lot of complex applications that are being used by people every day, and it's not like everything is made accessible. Knock on wood. But it's also sometimes, even if it's accessible, it may not be usable. And there was a time when the only accessibility came from the screen reader. It's not like the applications, pre-Section 508, pre-WCAG, it's not like people were just designing accessible solutions. So that was kind of a game changer, right, for people.
Well, and absolutely. And I can tell you, even as far back as like the middle 2000s, like particularly in banking where I used to work, there were older applications that were, they were green screens, which you needed scripting to be done in order to make those things usable and accessible. Um, the web certainly some stuff, but where I saw scripting helpful for blind colleagues of mine were these old Windows desktop applications and green screen applications, where the only way you really could have access is if it was scripted.
Well, and it's still today. I mean, we're still doing scripting for customers today
Hmm.
and in our own products. And it's not that people aren't trying to make them accessible, but sometimes the overall usability of something may need scripts to make the user experience better. We
More
don't want to,
efficient, right?
yeah, more efficient. We don't want to tab 46 times to get the answer to something.
Yeah.
And so if you're in a time crunch job and you're on the phone and you need to solve problems, you don't want to have to tab and make the customer wait through that problem. Um, or you may be working in an application, and that efficiency just makes such a difference. So
Absolutely.
yeah, scripting is been an amazing movement.
Now I'm a big Braille user, and so the next innovation in 1997 was the introduction of Braille support. And as someone who goes back to the days of Versa Braillers and then over to the Braille displays,
You didn't just age yourself with
oh,
VersaBraillers, by
of
the
course not, of course not. But
way.
but um but yeah, the Braille displays. I used to have a 40 cell Braille display that I used, and just having the seamless access, knowing that it was still JAWS behind the scenes, at least for me, was game changing for sure.
Well, and it was a critical piece of technology to be able to enter the international markets as well. The US market is probably lower on Braille usage than, say, the European market. And
Woo!
so without that Braille support, we wouldn't have been able to launch into the international segments as well. So huge hats off to the innovations there. And it continues to the day of, split Braille and some other things that have happened over the last few years to add, features within Braille. And I think more are coming this year. So I would definitely pay attention to that. And that was cool. That was like 1997. Now we're creeping into the getting closer.
Hmm.
I think 1998 was also a huge game changer. And this was adding software synthesizers. So, and and you probably remember this, Jennison. There was a time when we would battle over which hardware synthesizer we would want. And people say, "What's a hardware synthesizer?" It was something, probably the most popular would be called a deck talk. And it was probably, I don't know, the size of a decent steak.
Oh yeah.
And, and right? And you'd
Yeah.
plug it into the back
You
of
had
your
to put the
computer,
card. Yeah, you
or
had
you
to
had
put
the card that went
card.
in the computer,
Yeah.
and you had to have somebody open up the computer to put the card in, and they had to change, dip switches and this kind of stuff,
Oh,
IRQs on the computer to make it work with your computer. Those were $1,200 a piece, $1,000,
in addition to
somewhere
the
in that neighborhood.
software.
It's separate from just the
Yeah.
JAWS software itself. So when HinderJoys added, you know, the Eloquence synthesizer, it was a game changer, because then all you needed was a sound card in your computer. And today, I mean, even though we've added other synthesizers over the years, Eloquence is still the #1 synthesizer used by our customers today, at least in the 7 countries, or 7 or 8 languages that it supports. Clearly in some languages you have to switch. So
Yeah. And then just moving along to 1999, the introduction of the virtual buffer. Now, this was game changing insofar as for the web, prior, the best way to move around a web page was using the tab key. That was it. I mean, do you remember those days, Matt, right? Where that was the best way to
sounds like a
do it.
lot of fun just pressing the tab key, doesn't it?
Yeah. But
They actually had a mode where you could hit a key. I think it was insert F5 back in the day, and it would reformat the entire web page into a single column, and then you could use your
oh
mouse cursor to move
wow.
down line by
Yeah.
line, and then you would click on things, and it was, could just think about the level of effort. And today you couldn't even do that. You would lose so much content. That may have been
Yeah.
okay with Internet Explorer back in those days. Um, but yeah,
And
the
things were
virtual
a lot,
cursor.
yeah, things were a lot more text based then too, insofar as, you know, you could get more out of it. But now, today, yeah, like you said, you wouldn't be able to do it that way. But the virtual buffer definitely made a huge difference just in navigating around and being able to get a real sense of what a page really, quote unquote, looked like or feels like, the layout of it.
Yeah, in 2000, one of the big things was improving support for Microsoft Office. And as we know today, we can't live without it. Um, whether you're using it in the browser, or you're using it on the desktop, or even on your phone, we live in Outlook, we live in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, depending on what your job is. And so improving that level of support so that, people like you and I could, and anybody else listening, it could be able to use the tools that we have to do just for work. And if you didn't have that, I don't, I, I don't even know where we'd be today without supporting something as important as, say, Microsoft Office. And clearly it's changed over the years, and it's more dynamic today. And the company does a lot of stuff to keep up with that.
Absolutely. Going back to the web in 2002, who doesn't use the H key, right? Who doesn't use the I key? Those quick nav keys came into play in 2002, and what a game changer that made, to be able to move by different elements around, at the time, the web screen. That again helps with efficiency, because I'm assuming and you can tell me, Matt, but all of these keystrokes, the quick keys, were developed to make it much more efficient for us to be able to just move around and get to things quickly, right?
Yeah, and they rarely change, because if you do change something, somebody's going to say, "But I use that key."
Yeah.
So I think they've had one change in the last probably 23 years, and that was to add the letter Y to look for uh, elements that should be probably tagged as, say, headings or something like that.
Yeah.
And so, um, when we think about it, I hit E on web pages that I need to quickly go to an edit box.
Yep.
I
Same
need to
here.
go to a button. I hit the letter B.
B. Yep.
I don't want to, I took mandatory training the other day for a customer, and, quickly get to the next button was Shift B. And that went from the top of the page to the bottom, and the next button was the command that I need to land on. I press enter and went to the next slide. And just that capability sped up the whole process of, otherwise I'd be tabbing or down arrowing until I get to something. So huge innovation there.
What happened in
Um,
2003?
place markers. Okay, so this is actually one of my favorites because um, there's times when you were using an application or a website and you want to always get back to that same spot. And so the place markers were a big part of this. You could basically set something as a place where you always want to go on a specific web page, and then all you have to do is press the letter K, and it makes it quick and easy. Now, place markers have expanded over time to include inside, Office applications, so that you can highlight text and things like that. So the place marker command is amazing. So it's Control Shift K. You can set a place marker on a word. You can check a box that says anchor to this text, um, only on this domain. It's a very powerful command.
Now, a feature I don't use myself, but I know that is really popular, Matt, is Tandem. What was that? What's
Yeah,
that?
it's
What was that
yeah.
all
So
about?
JAWS Tandem's really cool. So it was designed for both support and training. So a lot of people, state agencies, individual trainers, scripters, our tech support staff, if somebody called them up and said, "Hey, can you help me or work with me?" I could tandem directly to your computer by you giving me a special code. Now you may experience this today with Microsoft Quick Assist. Same concept.
Hmm.
And I can tandem to it and I can hear your JAWS and press keystrokes as if I'm driving your computer, and it allows me to be able to say train with you or teach you something or support you. And so the JAWS Tandem is still one of the most used features today,
Oh,
and continues to get upgrades to help support the customer as well. So the next one is pretty cool. In 2010 was the text analyzer. So the text analyzer, we could be sitting in a document and you want to know, did I put extra spaces? Is there a punctuation that's in the wrong spot? Did I do too many capital letters somewhere? Is something look wrong? And you can use a command, or you could just go into the mode, and I think it's Alt Windows I will just jump to the inconsistency in the text. This is really, really important for people who are wanting to proofread their documents to make sure that we don't have major font changes right in the middle of the document, or extra punctuation, or missing extra spaces and things like that.
yeah,
Um,
I got to tell you, as a perfectionist that I am, having that feature, particularly as I'm reviewing Word documents that I've authored, or if I'm adding to other people's work, I want to make sure I'm using the font that they're using, or that all of my stuff is consistent. And Text Analyzer certainly has saved me on more than one occasion.
Now, someone's going to say we've skipped a few years, and it's not that there wasn't innovations. There's, on on our website, we actually have a link to a video with all 30 years listed out. We chose ones that we wanted to highlight within the amount of time that we thought we had to be able to do it. And so don't assume that just because we skipped a year that we're not appreciative of all the technology that they've done inside the JAWS software in every year. We picked and chose the ones that we were really focused on.
Absolutely. Now, Matt, convenient OCR in 2011. That was another big game changer. What do you want to say about that?
So this is one that's really fascinating to me because um, you know, for a long time we all bought specialty OCR programs, and we made one. OpenBook, Kurzweil was out there,
I'm
and
from Canada. We had Iris.
okay, so these were products made specifically for blind and low vision people, and they did some really good stuff. They did some good formatting. They allowed you to do all kinds of things in the application. But if you just wanted to quickly OCR something, OCR being optical character recognition, why can't I just press insert space and whatever the command is, O for OCR, and A to acquire image off of a scanner or the Pearl camera. And that just makes it so much faster. And I just hope I got that command right. But the ability to, this isn't test Matt on his commands day. Okay. But, those kinds of things, those innovations also save people money.
Hmm.
Um, and allowed somebody to quickly get OCR. And there's other OCR features in the product, but the concept of doing an OCR, straight from a camera, as well as documents. So you could have a PDF file in one of your
With
folders.
let me tell you,
I
the
just had your favorite
image
word, PDF.
PDF, well, PDFs that are made entirely of images, right? Of
Yeah,
images of text.
yeah,
Now,
and yeah.
not to say that those are bad, right? But sometimes you don't have a choice, and particularly like restaurant menus or things like that. But to be able to go directly from JAWS, which you know, and then use the OCR capabilities, that again to me was huge help.
And some of the enhancements that have come over the years since then, you can go directly into Word. It will also do some foreign language translation for you. So it does some really amazing things in OCR today. So I think continuing down the path on that has been amazing. So we talked about scripting earlier. There was something that scripting for a long time was very dependent on a specific application. Well, at some point, websites become applications. And so adding the ability to be able to do scripts for specific web page and settings for specific web pages in 2016 was, again, an amazing game changer, because you could be setting specific application settings just for applications you use in the web. And, maybe your timekeeping system uses slightly different settings. Maybe you don't want it to speak punctuation in there. You can do that just for that application. So this isn't just scripts. This is every setting that exists in JAWS you can do to a specific web page and or domain. And so if I don't know, you have you work for LinkedIn. If you wanted specific commands in LinkedIn, you could do those, set specific settings in JAWS for LinkedIn, or write scripts specifically for LinkedIn, and not just for the browser, but that specific application.
Really, really, really cool application, and like you said, recognizing the fact that the web in itself, a lot of websites, people think it's a website, but it really is an application.
So I slipped one in here that's, I don't even think on the list, but there were some of the things that were mentioned in the promotion of this, and this was touch support. In that same time frame, we started working on our kiosk support for JAWS, and this is allowing JAWS to be put on different platforms, and we had to enhance the touch support for this experience. And so for those of you who have used JAWS with a touch screen, it's pretty broad when you start thinking about computing. And so it's very complex because a computer screen has a lot of things on it. This isn't like the shape of your iPhone with limited controls and limited features. So we had to do some really cool stuff around that. And so I think our touch support has been improved and amazing to use, specifically on kiosk devices, payment devices, and kiosks that you may find in restaurants and things like that. So huge, huge improvement to be able to support a different kind of technology out there.
Now well, right now we're on Zoom, right? And so obviously with COVID, there was this huge influx of streaming this and having to Zoom into meetings or Teams into meetings, or Gmeet, any of those things. And you were battling with having JAWS as well in your headset. And so that all came to a head in 2022 when you folks introduced the concept of sound splitting. So being able to have JAWS, for example, on your left ear, and the Zoom call, as an example, on the right, which is how I have myself set up right now. And because not everyone's brain is wired that you can really intelligently understand what's going on with hearing JAWS at the same time as hearing a human voice in one ear. It's just not always possible. So the sound splitting, I don't know about you, Matt, but that to me has been such a useful tool.
Well, I think it helps you multitask, right? And I don't mean that in a negative way, but when you're working with a customer and the customer is talking in one ear and then you're looking up data on that customer, or you're on like the Zoom call, like you just explained, and you want to read the slides that someone's presenting, it's hard to do that if they're talking. And so you can't have it in the same ear. And so I look forward to someday when this kind of technology shows up in my iPhone, because today, it's hard to be on a call and try to look at some details or to OCR the screen and be able to read what's on the slides. So I think this technology is amazing. And the interesting thing about it, for a long time, people had split headphones. They were just very expensive and they were hardware. Well, when the world moved, like you said, during COVID, and then also to more soft phones, as they like to call them, and that's what Teams and Zoom become
Yeah.
at some point. Now all your controls are in the computer, and so you have to be able to control the sound from within the computer. So you don't have the desk phone anymore like you used to. So yeah, love this feature, and I think it's pretty cool. So in 2024. Holy smokes, we're getting up on time. In 2024, Picture Smart AI. And this was revolutionary. We first saw it come out with Be My Eyes, which I think is amazing. And then we held an event to get feedback from customers. Uh, and in that event, in Sharkvember, as we call it, in the month of November, we had a contest, and people submitted their preferences of things they wanted to see, and this was one of them. And so, today, to be able to, on this call right now, I could figure out what Jennison looks like and have Jaws tell me. Um, I can be on a Teams call and somebody's presenting slides, and or maybe a spreadsheet, and I need to figure out what's on the screen. I can get that information. So some people think of Picture Smart as actually just pictures or graphics on a website. It's way more than that. And today, I don't know if they released today or if it's tomorrow. There's a new version coming out. There'll be an early adopter feature called uh, Element Labeler, AI Labeler. And in that feature, you'll be able to press Insert G, but you have to enable the early adopter program in the options menu. And you'll press Insert G and it will label that element using Picture Smart, which I think is amazing. We're going to go down the path of adopting AI technology in this product, and I just hope everybody gets to get in there and use it. I mean, you use AI every day, don't you?
I do. Well, I've just about Picture Smart. I know, like, I just learned now what you told me about the fact that I could use it for spreadsheets and things that people are sharing on screen. But for me, like, I like reading Yelp reviews, and sometimes they'll put a post. They'll have a post, and they'll have take a picture of the menu at the restaurant. And previously, of course, I wasn't able to have access to that. But now with Picture Smart, I am able with pretty good success. I find out where the picture is in the Yelp post, and then I'm able to use Picture Smart to at least give me a sense of what's in that menu. So that's kind of cool. That's how I'm using it.
I was at one of the folks at the event today was talking to us about how they're a travel company, and people post reviews and then they'll post pictures
Yeah.
as part of the review. And it's hard to make everybody put alt text in who are posting stuff, for their personal, you
Yeah.
know, and so it's not that we shouldn't require and push for people to do alt text, but they're like, well, how do we make sure that people can get that description? I said, why don't you just tell the users that they can run AI on those images with whatever device or whatever. In the case of JAWS Picture Smart, the browsers now have some AI labeling of pictures. Again, we're not suggesting people shouldn't do alt text, but at the same time, it can't stop us using platforms. And one of my favorite features of it was on Amazon.com, being able to go and look at a speaker and a picture of the speaker, and the description did not tell me all the features that were part of that speaker. And that's the vendor who puts the description in. And all I wanted to know was one thing, and I asked the question, and it came back and said it had that feature. And they did it based on what was on the screen as part of the image. So being able to interrogate, images is amazing to me.
Now, one feature that you folks just introduced this year, in fact, if my notes are right, is FS Companion. And, there are hundreds of commands in JAWS, right? And not
None.
everyone,
Nope. I only know 5 of them.
right? But if people have questions on how to get JAWS to do X or Y things, FS Companion is great for that, right?
Yeah, and it's not just end users, but it's also technical support.
Yeah.
Not our technical support, just everybody. So share the fscompanion.ai website, or if fscompanion.freedomscientific.com is also the address. Your command inside JAWS 2025 is insert space F1. So you press insert followed by with space, let go, press the F1 key. That will open FS Companion. And you can ask any JAWS, Zoom text, or Fusion question. It is amazing what you can get out of it. And it will tell you stuff not just about JAWS, Zoom text, or Fusion, but how to use it with something else. So you could say, how do I insert a row in Microsoft Excel using JAWS? And it will tell you step-by-step commands. And most of those commands are Excel commands. They're not JAWS specific
Yeah.
commands. And so you can get a lot out of it. And so I highly recommend, if you work for a company, teach your tech support where they can get this information, because there's things they should know about how to use your products. So it's an amazing thing. It's continuing to change. I see a new release every couple weeks. And so pay attention to the product and keep trying things out. It's will continue to grow, and provide feedback. If you're not getting the right answer, tell somebody, because if we don't know, we won't fix it.
No, and just again to your point around people are using all kinds of different applications, and maybe they're coming into a new job where they need to start using a new application, and in the absence of getting training right away, this companion at least is there to provide real-time support to the JAWS users, for those of us who might need to find out, how do I insert a row using this piece of software, or how do I get to this using JAWS? And so the FS Companion is going to help a great deal with just filling those gaps.
So those were the kind of main ones that we wanted to talk about. But I'm kind of jumping in now to, what are some of the future things, Jennison, that you're kind of seeing that assistive technology either needs to do or can do? And obviously we've just talked a little bit about AI, and I think that that'll continue down the path, right?
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. And I mean, if you believe everything you read and all that stuff, I mean, the particularly the glasses, for those of us who, are out there traveling around, doing all those kinds of things, and want as much independence as possible. I think uh, that is still, as much as some of the tools are already out there, perfecting some of those tools, the wayfinding and all of that, I think is a big is going to be big in the next couple of years for sure. From an assistive technology perspective, I don't know what your thoughts are.
yeah, I mean, so we added voice commands a while back, and what I'm interested to know what you're thinking is, do you think there's going to be a point in your life, not just, where you're going to feel comfortable at your computer telling your computer to do things like you do your phone? Because I know you probably talk to your phone a little bit.
Yeah, so
Uh,
I absolutely could see that day. I mean, why not? I mean, we're constantly communicating with our devices, and why should it be limited to just the keyboard?
yeah.
Um, for sure.
But in terms of, like, say, reading emails, or you could have it read an email to you, right?
Hmm.
Would you see where a point where you're going to say, okay, I'm consuming, but now I want to go back and get certain parts of that email and then reply to those certain parts? Would you do that still with a keyboard, or would you think that at some point you're going to want to control everything like you do in Alexa or your
Yeah,
cell phone?
well, I said that I would never be someone who would have an Alexa device in my house, and here I am, always talking to my Alexa device. But when you
And that's not shame on Amazon. That's just
no,
you saying
yeah,
you didn't, right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But in terms of emails, I think at least for me, I think I'll be old school as long as I can and continue to use a keyboard to respond to those types of things.
Hmm.
Um, because the unless the voice get recognition gets that much better. But at least for me, I could see myself still using the keyboard for those types of interactions. But other things, absolutely just using voice.
Do you jump into using other synthesizers today? Are you still mostly like an eloquence person?
I'm mostly an eloquence person.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, same here. Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of new natural voices,
Oh
and
yeah,
maybe that's right for somebody newly into assistive technology or newly into screen reading.
yeah. But
Um,
for at least for me, and I guess it's the same for you, Matt. Like we're so used to these like impersonally sounding synthesized voices that at least to me it doesn't really matter.
yeah, and you're used to the way it pronounces
Yeah,
things. And so the minute changes the pronunciation, um, it makes it difficult to kind of find that that's the way you want to, you want to hear it differently all the time. I mean, we get comfortable in our own skin, right? And
absolutely.
and I think it's interesting, that this is an actually interesting one about get your thoughts on this. AI voices for audio description.
Yeah, I mean, those most people prefer um like a natural sounding voice for that because it for descriptions of video, I mean, those are typically like movies and shows that you're watching. You want a human sounding voice describing it just because it adds more to the nuance. At least I prefer that instead of
Hmm.
some sort of like synthetic voice coming in and just describing things. To me, that breaks the mood.
Were you ever a person who listened to books that were text to speech rather than listening to, say,
A reader.
recorded audio? Hmm.
No, I've always had recorded audio
Hmm.
or human voices.
Hmm.
So maybe I'm
Hmm.
not the right person to ask.
Well, no, though, but this is the kind of things that everybody's thinking, right? Do I
Right?
want that change? Because this has been a topic over the last year with all of the voice technology coming out. Um, do we want AI voices doing the audio description on movies
Now,
and or TV shows? And so
yeah,
it's an innovation, and the question is, it may it if it becomes more cost effective to the point that
I was just gonna say, yeah,
every
that
show
that's
comes
gonna
out with audio description, and then that is
it's
the
a
benefit.
trade-off. It's a trade-off for sure.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that there's so many shows out there, right, that are streamed, and there's so many videos, period, that are out there that are not accessible. So yeah, like there's definitely an argument that could be made. Like, sure, I prefer to have a human like voice and someone actually behind the microphone, but
Hmm. Hmm.
that's not the reality, right? There's too many pieces of video out there. So I absolutely, from that perspective, that's where AI is kind of going to help us out and make much more of that video content accessible to us.
What will be interesting is, does AI take over the decision of what to say and
Oh,
describe, or is it still up to the writer? Because right now it's somebody writing the script,
yeah.
and does AI become the tool that does that? So thinking more on the website, are there things that if you sat down in a web page today that you said, "Oh, I need that to be better and faster at using the web," would you want something to describe things to you as you hit a page more than just the number of links and headings and structure that it hits on the
Yeah,
page today?
I don't know what else it could tell me, honestly.
Well, I mean, on your
Um,
phone, you're getting summaries of your emails.
the, which I
Would you want,
yeah, I mean, I personally don't find the summaries that useful on my
well, the other
emails.
day, the summary, you said that you were going to NFB, and it told me the summary was NFL.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited that you were going to go to the NFL
But yeah,
summer
I mean,
convention.
those will get better. Those will get more.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
They'll perfect those. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, the part of it to me is like I still like to open up those individual emails, and part of the fun, if you will, even with web pages, is I still want to discover. I want to get my own feel and make my own interpretation of what that web page looks like, as opposed to being told that this is the way it is, right? And that's just,
So
again,
what
that's
is
just
when
me.
you hit a web page for the first time, what do you do? It's your first time you hit that page. Do you look
Oh,
at headings? Do you look
yeah,
at
well,
regions?
I go right to the top, and it's just like I do a walk around. Essentially, it's like going into a room for the first time, like a physical
Uh-huh.
room.
Uh-huh.
I will walk it and just look around and see what's there. Will I
Yeah.
use headings? Yeah, for sure. But I'm usually also just using my down arrow key just to get a feel for where everything is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was actually a really good blog post on tpgi.com by Ryan Jones. And I think it was called The Tale of Two Rooms. And it was that description about how do we explore a room and how is that different for a blind person than, let's say, a sighted person. You know, they walk into the room and they see that there's four chairs around a table and a TV on the wall and trash can in the corner,
Yeah.
you know, credenza with coffee machine on the counter. We don't see those things. And so we have to, you know, go through and check it out to understand where all of those things are. And so it's interesting to figure out when AI becomes some of that tool to kind of explain it. And can we train it individually for the kinds of things we're looking at to determine? Because, you know, if you're going to go to a
A
streaming
hotel
site,
room?
well, if you're going to go to a streaming site,
Oh, yeah.
your idea is that you want to find a specific show. So you're
Yep.
going to either search or you're going to look at the list of listings, you know, and those become listings of newly released or um, uh, best watched
Mm-hmm.
or top shows,
Yeah.
what you watched recently, what you still have in your queue. Those, you
Recommendations.
know, and if you understand that and you know, after you explore it, then you see that those are headings and you could use the H key to move to those different sections and then start navigating, right? And that's the
Mm-hmm.
way you're thinking of it. It's like
Yeah.
you kind of explore, feel it around,
Yep.
you understand the layout. Now you may adopt and use some of those keys,
The quick
the
nav.
quick nav keys. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Probably the most used things today, right? I mean,
Yeah.
quick nav is amazing because you know you well it's in its name. You want to get
Yep.
there quickly, right? So this has been
And the
great.
quick, yeah, the quick nav keys, you may have mentioned this and I missed it, but they're also available in popular apps like Microsoft Word.
Yeah, so in Word you could do an insert Z to turn on the quick nav keys and
Yep.
then you can hit those different letters. Now the minute you do something in the app, they turn off, so you have to remember to turn insert Z back
Yes.
on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it is hugely valuable when you're navigating a Word document and things like that as well. So it's kind of a wrap up. I'd love to hear more about what's coming on. You know, what are some of the things if somebody wants to learn more about GAD, which we, you know, you already gave the website, but maybe the website will publish this. There's activities tomorrow, the next day, the rest of the month. Where can they see some of those activities?
Yeah, well, definitely the place to go is accessibility.day. And there's a link there for events, and it's sorted. You can sort by country. I think right now we're already at about 180 events and counting, because what ends up happening are people are rushing to get their events up on the site that people have been busy organizing. But there's a bunch of in-person and virtual events, like I said, that have happened, but are the big set of events will be happening tomorrow. For example, I'm doing a live one here in Pittsburgh, where I am today. Tomorrow at Carnegie Mellon University, that's open to the public, and certainly there, like I said, there's other ones. There's a meetup happening in San Francisco where people are getting together for a social gathering for the Accessibility and Inclusive Design Meetup group over there. So definitely your best place to go is accessibility.day to learn about what events are nearest to you, whether it's in person near you, or if you can't travel, there's definitely a whole host of virtual events, and in English and in a variety of other languages.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I got lucky last night. I went to the London Web Standards meetup and celebrating GAD. So
Nice.
yeah, definitely. There's things in different cities, and like this, there's going to be other webinars, and I'm sure we have more content coming out through TPGI in the next day. So definitely take a look at that as well. We do thank you, Jennison, for participating today. I'm very proud of this company for 30 years of this, and I'm looking forward to whatever the next 30 is going to look like. And, let's just keep using the shark and figure out where we can go from there. So
And for
really
those of
appreciate
us,
it.
yeah, and for those of us who are blind and who depend on JAWS as one of the screen readers that we use, I mean, this is all about accessibility, right? And we need to get more people knowing that we are out there wanting to use your websites. And one of the ways we do that is with JAWS. So really happy to be here to celebrate 30 years of this amazing screen reading software. And congrats to everyone at TBGI Vespero. And thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you, Jennison. And if we can go ahead and put up the QR code for the page, I believe is what we have last. And I think it has some audio with it as well. Not
Don't think
sure.
I was sent that.
Okay, so the page to get the information, Carrie, we'll just send this out with the recording announcement. There's a page with the recording for all 30 years of JAWS. So it goes through each of the innovations for each year. And so we'll make sure that that link goes out to everybody so that if you didn't, we talked about several of these tonight, but
We
not
took
all
the
of them.
highlights.
We took the highlights that we saw as highlights.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean
Yeah.
the rest aren't valuable. And we'll make sure that link gets included in the email that goes out to everybody. So thank you everybody for attending, and hope you have a wonderful Global Accessibility Awareness Day, and keep using JAWS. And hopefully if you haven't, I believe you could still join the Insert J Club. So I highly recommend that as well.
Oh, I should join.
You should.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Jennison.